Is it just me, or does it feel like Jonathan Smith is going to be done at Michigan State soon? I know he's only in his second year with the Spartans, but it just feels like Michigan State football is in big trouble right now, and Smith just isn't the guy for the job. There was a lot of optimism going into year 2 of the Jonathan Smith era, with guys like Aiden Childs returning and a couple of big pickups in the transfer portal. An early win over Boston College gave fans a sense of false hope, as BC is one of the worst teams in all of college football, and since then, they have done nothing. They have lost 4 straight Big Ten games, and I'm honestly not sure if they win a Big Ten game this year. In today's video, I want to talk about why the Jonathan Smith era has not gone according to plan, why this season has been so bad, and my thoughts on Michigan State moving forward. I'm not going to pretend I'm a Michigan State expert, so please forgive me and correct me down in the comment section below. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you can support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's go ahead and get started and talk about Jonathan Smith and Michigan State. It has been an interesting few years for Michigan State football. They hired Mel Tucker away from Colorado, and he had a breakout 2021 season in which Michigan State was a legit college football playoff contender, and Kenneth Walker and Jaden Reed were stars. Unfortunately, things would flame out for Mel Tucker, and he had that interesting situation in which Michigan State used as an excuse to fire him. Whether you agree with it or not, it does seem like karma is coming back to bite both Michigan State and Jonathan Smith, as a couple of years ago, Smith decided to shock the college football world and leave his alma mater of Oregon State for East Lansing. After being a star quarterback for the Beavers, Smith quickly rose up the coaching ranks and helped salvage an Oregon State program that was pretty much dead in the water. He ended up going 34-35 in 6 seasons as the head coach at Oregon State, but since 2022, he had gone 18-7. He was the Pac-12 Coach of the Year in 2022, and they finished number 17 in the nation. Oregon State was absolutely horrible before this, and it did seem like he was screwing Oregon State over. The Beavers had just been left out of conference realignment, and this was just a death blow to them. Jonathan Smith seemingly got out of Dodge and was going to be the head coach at a premier Big Ten school. But things never go according to plan when you do things in a shady way. Again, I'm not necessarily blaming Smith for taking the job, but the way he left felt a little bit disrespectful, and in my opinion, Michigan State was grasping at straws to get rid of Mel Tucker and the large sum of money they agreed to pay him. But that's just me. We are now 2 years into the Jonathan Smith hire, and it looks like a complete disaster. In an ESPN article posted when he was hired, Michigan State's athletic director said, quote, "He's shown not only the ability to recruit talented student athletes who fit his system, but also able to develop and maximize players once they're in the program. At his core, he's a quarterback's coach, and throughout his career, he's been instrumental in the development of young quarterbacks, which is essential in today's college football landscape." Okay, so there are 2 takeaways from that statement. Jonathan Smith is supposed to do more with less, and he's supposed to have good quarterback play. Well, no offense to Smith, but he absolutely butchered his quarterback evaluation. The Spartans at one point had both Sam Leavitt and Hauser on the roster. Leavitt was a late rising recruit in the class of 2023 who ended up flipping from Washington State over to MSU, and this was a huge get for him. Smith was not able to retain Leavitt, and he transferred over to Arizona State and has since become a superstar for them. He's thrown for 4,400 yards and 35 touchdowns, helped ASU get to the college football playoff, and Leavitt could be a first-round pick. Smith did not do enough to keep him in East Lansing, and also didn't do anything to keep Hauser. Hauser was another huge quarterback recruit who originally committed to Boise State, but would flip to Michigan State. He actually started a couple of games during the 2023 season, throwing for 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns. Jonathan Smith was not able to convince Hauser to stay at Michigan State, and he has since gone off to East Carolina, where in 2 seasons as a starter, he's thrown for over 4,000 yards and has nearly 40 touchdowns. Hauser is top 10 in the country in passing yards right now and is really helping out East Carolina. I'm not sure how it would have translated at Michigan State, but on paper, he had a superstar in Sam Leavitt and Hauser, who could have been a good starter. The biggest reason why this is a big whiff is because he decided to go all in on Aiden Childs. He ended up going to Downey High School in California, and Smith saw his potential early on and got him committed to the Beavers. He would eventually develop into a top 100 recruit, and after showcasing decent skills as a freshman behind DJU in 2023, Childs would follow him to East Lansing. Unfortunately, so far for Childs, he's just not been able to get things going. Last year, in his first season as a starter, he ended up throwing for 2,400 yards and 13 touchdowns, but he had 11 interceptions. This season, Childs has dealt with a couple of nagging injuries, but he's thrown for 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns compared to only 3 picks. Again, the numbers aren't horrible, but both Leavitt and Hauser have greatly outperformed him, and Childs is just not developing. He has all the potential in the world, but he just can't actually seem to take the next step. He was one of the players I was most excited to watch last season, and it turns out he's been pretty disappointing and underwhelming. Again, no offense to Childs, but Smith butchered that. That's what he was supposed to do at Michigan State. He was also supposed to do more with less, and so far, he's not been able to motivate his players at all. Going back to the 2024 season, they opened up the Smith era with a win over Florida Atlantic, 16-10. The Owls are not a good football program, but it was game 1 and they won, so that was all that mattered. They then ended up getting a pretty good win in week 2 as they go on the road and defeat Maryland 27-24. This created a lot of early optimism during the Smith era, and a 40-0 shutout over Prairie View A&M also really helped. But that was sort of the highlight of the Smith era, was his first 3 games, as since then it has been a dumpster fire. They ended up going on the road and lost a close game to Boston College, got blown out by number 3 Ohio State, and then got blown out by number 6 Oregon. To be fair, the OSU and Oregon games were going to be impossible, but at 3-3 with a 1-2 record in the conference, he would desperately need to get some wins. Unfortunately, the Spartans would only end up winning 2 of their last 6 games, as they would beat Iowa and Purdue, but beating Purdue didn't say much, as they were arguably the worst team in the FBS last year. They ended up losing to Michigan on the road, got blown out by Indiana, blown out by Illinois, and blown out by Rutgers at home. This was not a good look, as Smith would end up going 5-7 with a 3-6 record in his first year. Again, it was year 1 though, so he was going to get some slack. Going into the 2025 season, Smith and the Spartans were a popular breakout team as they returned Childs, grabbed a couple of big players out of the portal, and it seemed like Smith would probably get things going in year 2. Unfortunately, that is not how it has panned out. I mean, like, at all. In week 1, Sparty ended up facing off with Western Michigan, and they won the game 23-6. Who cares? That game wasn't that important. In week 2, they'd face off with Boston College at home, and in a thrilling game, they'd end up beating the Eagles 42-40 in double overtime. This caused a wave of excitement for Michigan State, as it seemed like it was going to be a fun season for them. Following a 41-24 victory over Youngstown State, there was some optimism that they could compete on the road against number 25 USC. Some thought the Trojans were overrated, but no, that wasn't the case. They ended up getting beat 45-31, and then after that, they got beat 38-27 by Nebraska. Okay, the team was now 3-2 with an 0-2 mark in the conference, but luckily, they had one of the worst teams in all of college football to face. Except, maybe not. UCLA had just pulled off one of the biggest stunners in years, beating Penn State at home, and now with some momentum, they would go face off with Michigan State on the road. In an absolutely humiliating game, UCLA would win 38-13 in East Lansing and kicked around the Spartans. There were honestly some people who were calling for Jonathan Smith's head after that game, and I don't necessarily blame them. They're now 3-3 with an 0-3 mark in the conference, and then they'd have to face off with a top 3 Indiana team on the road. This past weekend, they showed a little bit of life as they ended up putting up 13 points, but they lost by the same score. They lost 38-13 to the Hoosiers, and now all of a sudden Michigan State's 3-4, winless in the conference, and I'm not sure they're going to be favored the rest of the season. They face off at number 25 Michigan this weekend at a night game, and I think the only way Jonathan Smith saves his job is if he can find a way to make a bowl game. But again, I don't think it's going to happen. After that, they face off with a Minnesota team who's 1 win away from a bowl. They then play against Penn State, who still has plenty of talent, have to travel to Iowa, which is really hard to win, and then they play Maryland on a neutral site. Maryland is probably their best chance of winning a game this season, but even then, I don't think it's anywhere close to a guarantee. There's a good chance, in my opinion, that Michigan State goes 3-9, and I also do not think Jonathan Smith is going to survive the year. With all the talks about firing coaches, for some reason a lot of people haven't really been talking about Smith, and that's because Michigan State football currently feels irrelevant. Nobody's paying attention to them, nobody takes them seriously, and it seems there is no momentum for them. Aiden Childs only has 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns through the first half of the season, and while they've gotten decent production out of running back Mekhi Frazier, the running game just hasn't really been able to get going either. They ended up hitting on transfers Amari Kelly and Krishan McCray, and former blue chip recruit Nick Marsh has been a good receiver for them, but some are wondering if he's going to end up transferring after the season. Michigan State has just been embarrassing this year, and it feels like it's rock bottom for them right now. They are currently trending in the wrong direction, and after the season is over, either Jonathan Smith is going to be gone, or a lot of the coordinators are going to be gone. Something definitely needs to change unless they have a crazy turnaround. And here are some of the alarming stats from the Smith era so far. When they face off with Michigan this Saturday, it'll be the 20th game of the Smith era and the 14th against a Big Ten opponent. Currently, Smith is 8-11 in all of his games combined and is a disgusting 3-10 in Big Ten play. It's not just the fact that Michigan State is losing, but it's how badly they're losing. They've lost all 4 of their games during conference play by double digits, and they've been outscored 210-100 in the second half of Big Ten football games. They've also never scored more points than their opponent in the second half of a Big Ten game, and overall in 13 games, they've never once outscored an opponent in the second half. They have a minus 110 point differential. Obviously, both halves of football are important, but you make your money in the second half and you make your money in close games. And if as a coach you can't figure that out, you're going to get fired. In my opinion, the 2 biggest reasons why Michigan State and Jonathan Smith have failed is 1, I think he butchered the quarterback room, choosing Aiden Childs over Kattenhauser or Sam Levitt. And in 2, he is just getting beat with second half adjustments. He is constantly calling the wrong shots and is just getting outcoached by pretty much everyone at the Big Ten level. And if you can't win at the Big Ten level, you're not going to survive. Honestly, this is all kind of sad because I always liked Jonathan Smith while he was at Oregon State, and I think it's fun when Michigan State is good at football. But for now, they have some major questions to answer, and what do you guys think? If you're a Michigan State fan, how has the program reached this point? Why has Jonathan Smith not been successful? And what do you guys think they should do in the future? I know some people think Robert Saleh will take the head coaching job, but what do you guys think? Also, before you go, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.